student Zhang Shan, was summed up in the word, pitiful. This bunch of shameless louts had been chasing him for many days. Counter-attack. That was a joke. Zhang Shan had no intention of that at all. That would be blasphemy. Fortunately, he had gone through grueling training for the greatest king, and his breathing technique had been elevated to the 16th tier. His stamina and agility had improved greatly. Otherwise, he would have been dead many times over already. But even so, Zhang Shan could only run and hide. But such an exertion was not sustainable. Zhang Shan's best move was to play dead and hide. He concealed himself completely in the day, using his breathing technique to reduce his energy expenditure to a minimum, and emerged in the deep of night to forage. Zhang Shan had given up on contributing, but he was unwilling to be a burden. He would protect his own tag. The rest would be up to Achilles and Lai Xin. At that moment, Zhang Shan still did not know that the rest had already been eliminated. Zhang Shan and Mu Zhen were fundamentally different from Achilles and Lai Xin. They fought for their lives on every field, holding themselves in little regard. They were crystal clear on what they were capable of, whereas Achilles and Lai Xin had a prideful streak. One side fought for their lives, one fought like it was competition. The difference was huge. But Zhang Shan did not know how much longer he could hold out. He could not forage well, as the food supplies were often dropped in the day. And he had no means of doing battle with the Zergs, so he could only eat bark and grass. If this carried on, Zhang Shan felt like he might turn into a goat. In a completely different state from Zhang Shan, the Dynasty Battle team was extremely savage. One thing was that they were not the main targets. Another was that the team had Mayans, as well as 3 experts in ancient arts. The handicap of no ability X was a blessing, and each had collected tags. Zhou Yun, Pang Tong, and Anluda conducted ambushes. For ancient arts practitioners to fight average soldiers was a walkover. The key was that ability X suppression allowed them to fight without worries. Of course, they would not clash with the major teams. There were plenty of other tags for the taking. Zhou Yun, we have to go find that fatty and finish him off. His existence inconveniences us, Pang Tong said. Clearly, Lear really relied on this fatty, but he was just too disgusting. That body shape was suited for pig feeding. At the same time, Lear's trust in him affected them. These 3 had thrown their lot in with Lear. Although it sounded dignified, they were really trying to ride his coattails to greatness. That was why they needed Lear's trust and dependence. This fatty's existence had cramped their progress on all fronts. I concur. This is a rare opportunity. That person will impede the saint's path. My family had news that the great plan is nearing completion. We have to quickly cement our position. No more hesitation. Anluda nodded in agreement. Both were very decisive. There was nothing much to hesitate about on a matter like this. Zhou Yun frowned. Lear's character. We just want the best for him. Besides, without our help, he will not be able to take the Son of Saint position. Among the candidates, his power is the weakest. The Chronos family of Earth is not that capable. Whether in the Milky Way Alliance or in Saint, his position is very low, Pang Tong said. Actually, in terms of Saint, Zhou Yun's family sat higher than the Chronos family. Benefits and status, as well as control of the future, were what everybody fought for. Zhou Yun was not as direct as Pang Tong and Anluda, but he understood. He genuinely wanted to support Lear, as the only representative from Earth. Family background and bloodline would still count for much. But to reap their own benefits from this process, it was not as simple as committing without strings attached. That was just a fool with too many resources. To accomplish anything, the important thing was to gain Lear's trust. Only then could they benefit. And Luo Fei's existence was an obstacle. A person like Lear only had the space to trust one person. And as long as Luo Fei was around, no one else would have a turn. At this point, Zhou Yun's doubts were gone as well. Fatty was sneezing incessantly. He was lounging on a tree branch, clasping tag after tag. That punk Zhang Shan was really a honeypot, attracting a whole bunch of flies in crazy pursuit. And Fatty was the ultimate winner. Although he had wanted to skive, Lear had laid his decree. Luo Fei could tell when Lear was being serious, and when he did not mind things. And so he had to work hard, even if he did not want to. When Zhongshan was burrowing like a rabbit into whichever hole he found, Luo Fei was watching on, rolling with laughter. As for Zhongshan's pursuers, he had finished them all off. In such a situation, Luo Fei was unafraid of anybody. Who cared if it was Arbiter or Aslan? The journey to Titatitan Star had helped Lear gain much, but Luo Fei had gleaned much as well. On the surface, he seemed like a slack guy, but in truth, Luo Fei's comprehension was terrifyingly good. He was the kind that could focus in an instant, which meant that what took others a long time to distill and process was a walk in the park for Luo Fei to grasp. Some talents could not be seen. It was difficult for others to grasp it, but it was a piece of cake for Luo Fei. Only, he had no ambitions. His only goal was to live happily and be a good sidekick for Lear. Fatty told himself that he was not here to help Zhongshan, but to help complete Lear's mission. Fatty ghosted over like a bird, casually tossing a bag down. This was fresh supply that he could not possibly finish. This Zhongshan needed to keep his strength up to be a good bait. It would be bad if he starved to death. After Luo Fei had fallen asleep, Zhongshan crawled out in the middle of the night. Listening to the sounds of the ground for half the day, it seemed clear. His luck seemed to be holding. He had not met any problems in the last 2 days. He had heard fighting sounds nearby, and had tested his luck to see if he could scavenge anything. Perhaps. After just a few steps, he saw an airdrop bag. Damn, this luck was godly. Instantly, Zhongshan's stomach rumbled. He was about to become a rabbit from all the grass nibbling. He hurriedly opened the bag. It was cram biscuit and water. He could not help himself. Even if it was poison, he would take the risk. Many times, people were unafraid of death, but the needs of the body were irresistible. Zhongshan was on the breaking point after the last few days, and he was about to snap. Zhongshan ate and looked at the sky. This was godlike luck. Character always prevails. The few major team's members were proceeding smoothly as well. But what they did not expect was that the weaker teams had started to form alliances. In a straight-up fight, the bottom-ranked 5 teams were gone the moment they were discovered. After a week, everyone understood this. Even if they acquired tags, they could not protect them. That was why teaming up was the only road to survival. Because till present, enough teams had been eliminated. As long as you survived, you could enter the main competition. And mecha fights were a completely different matter. A round of supply drops had begun on Island as well. Keeping up the stamina and fighting power was undoubtedly important, and the same went for Wang Zheng. Eating normal food was definitely better than eating scraps. That was why student Wang had gone to scrounge for supplies, while Mars and Zhang Zun minded the house. Tags were still scattered on the floor. These things, fought over everywhere else, did not have much meaning here. Captain Mars, can Wang Zheng make it through? Zhang Zun asked. Mars eyed Zhang Zun. Maybe, maybe not. Zhang Zun rolled his eyes. That said nothing. But no one could make any guarantees here. If Wang Zheng's opponents did not play fair, then Wang Zheng had no chance of success. But there were rules. And this bunch of people still cared about their dignity. That was Wang Zheng's only hope. At least, that was what Mars thought. Even he was ashamed. The Aslan people were righteous enough. The only one that needed watching was that Aragorn. On this matter, he would be unscrupulous. As long as they did not ally up, Mars thought Wang Zheng stood a chance. Zhang Zun was just about to say something when the trees rustled. A few people were walking towards them. Clearly, they had no intention of concealing their tracks. But any who dared to do so must be very confident challengers. When these 4 walked out, the rest could indeed go home. Aslan Gang, with an additional Lear, Lin Feng, Zade, and Di Maria were surprised to see Mars. Especially in this situation. Mars, you intend to help Wang Zheng? Lin Feng asked mildly. As for this Arbiter Pro, Lin Feng still needed to feel him out. Mars paid him no heed. He ignored this Aslan Royal College captain. Lear smiled slightly. Mars, I recall that arbiters don't like to interfere unnecessarily. Why stick in these muddy waters? Mars shot Lear a cold look. Since when did Earthlings start to grovel before Aslan? This was a stark challenge. Zhang Zun was sweating. The situation did not look good. 4 on 2, and his contribution was negligible. Mars was still not completely recovered, and might not be able to perform at his best. Was this bravado? Lear's smiling face did not change in the slightest. Given your character, you rarely make taunts. The only possible reason is that you are blustering. Senior Mars, you are injured. Mars' expression was implacable, but he was secretly frightened. This Lear was a fox, to be able to guess this much. Lin Feng and the rest were prepared. Given Mars' state, even if he was wounded, it was not that serious. Before entering the main competition, provoking Mars was not a wise decision. Mars, our target is clearly Wang Zheng. Where is he? Chenkinzade asked. Mars shrugged. I'm not his nanny. Who knows where he is? Chenkinzade's eyes flashed. They had the power advantage. If Mars would not cooperate, finishing him off would do as well. Lin Feng was evidently the spokesperson out of the 4. 3 against 1 was definitely advantageous. The problem was, Di Maria's physical abilities was not his forte. He and Chenkinzade could definitely hold their own, but Lear was an unknown. That guy was hard to read, and too stable. Besides, others were definitely watching. Taking on Mars now was no guarantee. We're in no rush either. Lin Feng waved. Finishing off Wang Zheng offended nobody, and would not cross any sensitive lines. At the same time, it was their strongest guarantee of safety. Mars knew that this Lin Feng was the top of Aslan's younger generation. The heir of the Zeus arts. When weighing risk and reward, the Aslan people would play it safer. But Wang Zheng had not come back yet. The second wave of people had come. On the captain battlefield, their analysis skills were all strong. Lin Feng's wave had brought many people along as well. After pros took their tags, then subsequent clashes were either personal vendettas or attempts at fame. The Dark Knight battle team's captain, Gonzalez, had a fickle mood. Ghost King, Gonzalez was not technically a student, which was why he had to be even more aggressive. Passive plays were not in the nature of the Darkness Empire. At the same time, the Darkness Empire people were even craftier than arbiters. To risk fighting Lin Feng or Aragorn was needless, but this Wang Zheng seemed like a good target. Greatest King. Although his skill level was there, he had enough fame to feed the Darkness Empire reputation. Gonzalez was not surprised that Lin Feng and company were here. It would be strange if they had been absent. If Aslan people could tolerate such a thing, they would not be Aslan people. Seeing Gonzalez, Lin Feng, and the rest frowned slightly as well. Gonzalez smiled. Very crowded. Who knew that Wang Zheng was so popular? Lin Feng, how about leaving this round to me? Lin Feng and Gonzalez had clearly met before, but it was definitely not at the school level. Lin Feng smiled slightly. As the host wishes. Chenkinzade was discontented. They needed no one's aid in such matters, but Lin Feng was held in high esteem, so Chenkinzade raised no objections in the end. He switched his perspective. Perhaps it was better to let Gonzalez handle it, because the Darkness Empire people were known for their dark tactics. Gonzalez did not stand on ceremony either, and sat down. He looked over at Mars. These were no strangers. Even if it was their first time meeting, the most outstanding of each country's younger generation were just those few. Even if they had never met before, they would have heard of each other. But as to why he was here, it looked like he was injured. Zhang Zun had felt the atmosphere grow cold ever since Gonzalez arrived. This person was not on the same level as them at all. For such a person to join SIG was shameless. The level of maturity and his control over his aura were on a different level. And it was directed towards Wang Zheng. If the Aslan people could still be regarded as within reasonable boundaries, this Gonzalez oozed a dense bloodthirst. Of the very fatal kind. Those that came at Wang Zheng would not be wave after wave of people, but those with pressing reasons and opportunity seekers like Gonzalez. Sweet targets with no comebacks like Wang Zheng were a rare find. Is this going to be a gangbang? Dong said. That's too unfair. Even if there were Aslan people present, in that instant, Dong stood on Wang Zheng's side. When did Aslan ever have to rely on numbers? Dear little Dong Dong, this is a battle. From the start, there have been many deaths and injuries. The only logic is that the weak will feed the strong. Look, even I know that. Qian Shuidi furiously licked her lollipop. This was over. He was about to be beaten to death in series. Ruoliu. This black guy. Is he strong? Lin Weiyan asked. Finally, even the little princess was getting worried. Because she knew her cousin Lin Feng's ability was top class. Plus, there was Chenkin Zade and Di Maria, and even Lear. And now another point had appeared. Gonzalez, called Ghost King. The Darkness Empire's former assistant chairman of the student council. He has already graduated, but sneaked his way back in. Ability X at Earth 2 level, and physical technique should be the Blackheart arts of the Darkness Empire. Ability. I don't have that much information, but he's currently affiliated with the Death Troop in the Darkness Empire. He cuts people down like wheat. That's a known fact. Ouyang Ruoliu flipped through her data. Actually, if I were the organizer of SIG, I wouldn't let guys like this in. Real military students were still far from these professional soldiers. And 31 years old was a person's prime, at least in terms of physical ability. This meant that Wang Zheng would have a disadvantage in the fight. But in these circumstances, it was not even a problem of disadvantage. If I were Wang Zheng, I would run as far and fast as I can. Leave this bunch hanging. Qian Shuidi smiled. He'll be back, Lin Weiyan said softly. All three girls started. They did not understand, and yet they did. If he shrank away here, then he would not have made his stand back then. But it looked like a wall of death he faced. If he wanted to live, he would fight a battle, and then find a way to surrender. At least he would keep his life. Perhaps he would return a laughing stock, but at least it would not be in a coffin. Wang Zheng had come back before too long, holding supplies in his hand. He was not surprised to see this crowd. He was not in a bad state, although his left index finger was injured. But such small injuries did not mean much to him. He tossed the supply bag to Zhang Zun and looked at Lear and his gang, then at Gonzalez. That was no surprise either. Given Wang Zheng's intellect, he had foreseen this as the worst-case scenario. But he had not imagined that the worst-case scenario would come so quickly. Seemed like the name of greatest king did not intimidate these pros at all. If he did not remember wrongly, this was Gonzalez of the Darkness Empire. He emanated the aura of a military veteran, and strict and severe discipline. Who's first? Wang Zheng said. As his gaze fell on Lear, Lear actually smiled slightly without malice. The smile of seeing an old friend. Gonzalez stood up. Dark Knight Battle Team Captain, Gonzalez. If you surrender now, I'll spare your life. If we start fighting, I won't really know how to hold back. Militaries trained killing moves with no mercy. They were unwilling to show mercy, not even in such situations. Otherwise, bad relations would linger. This was Gonzalez's death notice. At the same time, this was something that others were willing to see. Lear's smile had been there too long. He could not only accomplish his goal, but he could also enjoy the process and ending. This was the perfect scenario. That was why Lear believed that survival was the ultimate way. Because God would exterminate your enemies. Gonzalez had leapt up, and Wang Zheng walked over steadily, crooking a beckoning finger. Gonzalez, you're not the first to say that, and you won't be the last. Ping. Gonzalez suddenly lunged, his body almost flat and his hand in a karate chop. This move allowed him to easily penetrate bodies. Wang Zheng stood unmoving, then jerked his left hand to fling aside Gonzalez's chop. Gonzalez's body twisted instantly, a leg sweeping towards Wang Zheng's head. Wang Zheng's right hand immediately moved to the defense. But this was a feint, and Gonzalez's single leg flexed, using this instant of misjudgment to deliver a series of frenzied kicks with his right leg, which rained down on Wang Zheng's cranium like autumn leaves. Wang Zheng's right hand blocked consecutively. He was on the back foot from the get-go. Gonzalez was kicking hard. He wanted to break Wang Zheng's hand. After more than 10 kicks, Wang Zheng's defenses were still solid. Gonzalez took a deep breath. This time, his leg's backswing was larger, but in that instant, Wang Zheng lunged in with his elbow. Instant reflexes born of endless training, that had completely become instinct. Boom. Gonzalez was sent flying more than 10 meters, sliding to a stop. His left shoulder was guarding his chest. In an instant, he bended, resisted, let through, and rebounded. 4 techniques which dispersed the elbow technique. Clearly, Gonzalez had also seen Wang Zheng's battle footage. At this level, pros could always find the counter if they had watched the move enough. Even if it was not the perfect counter, they would not be left helpless. When different classes and tiers watched the same battle, their understanding was very different. Gonzalez had seen a few of Wang Zheng's key battles, and seen his physical technique from his mecha fights. Wang Zheng's attack style was very straightforward. His spinning shovel spoke of excellent wrist strength. The elbow techniques were his main aggressive move, and were polished and inflicted heavy damage. But he had very little moves. And the military trained killing techniques endlessly, which were the fastest methods. Rewind time by 5 years, and Gonzalez would have been uncertain of the win. But now, his comprehension was on a completely different level. Gonzalez drew his titanium knife. Everyone's gazes froze. Knife or not was a completely different notion. Without the knife, even a loss would not translate to a fatal wound. But with a weapon, especially at this level, a slip-up would mean death or grave injury. Which meant death. The dagger in Gonzalez's hand gently traced some weaving patterns, like an elf dancing in front of him. His gripping method was rarely seen, even in Elite Academy X. The major military schools focused on learning battle fundamentals, from theory, to practice, to body training. And they focused on different battle tactics. Whereas killing techniques would be learned in the military. Killing was a different matter from school. If it were mecha, then the distance would be compressed. But in close combat, the gap would be exacerbated. The knife was artistry in Gonzalez's hands. An extension of his body that could slice through a finger easily with a gentle kiss. A warm part of his body, and cruelty and coldness to his enemy. Gonzalez was setting up some psychological pressure. This Wang Zheng's counter ability was not bad. Gonzalez had to finish him off while ensuring he himself remained unharmed. Otherwise, he would be in a dangerous predicament. That was why the knife was the best choice. The sky slowly darkened. Night on the island was darker than on normal planets. There was only faint starlight. 2 fighters, seeing things was not a problem, but a battle was a different matter. The risk was astronomical. And this was just what Gonzalez was waiting for. Darkness was his domain. Gonzalez's pupils vanished, turning gray. He was wearing the bracelet, so he could not use ability X. But for some people, or the exceptionally talented, their ability X changed in nature after it emerged. Of course, this must be linked to the Blackheart arts that Gonzalez trained in. He had complete night vision, and was unhindered by the darkness. Everything about him was clear, even down to people's heartbeats. It was not even that he could see clearly, but he could even analyze everything. All was within his sight, and his heart thirsted for blood. He actually channeled everybody's thirst onto the target, Wang Zheng. In the instant that the light faded completely, Gonzalez attacked. He vanished. A stab, a very quick stab. Almost nobody present had registered the move. It was faster than the eye could see. Shing. Wang Zheng's chest flinched, and he dodged it, although not completely. Wang Zheng could adjust to the darkness very well, although not as quickly as his opponent. He had not pulled his knife, not because he was showing off, but because the knife would affect his judgment. His bloodstream was full of power. The power source of Blackheart arts was blood. This smell triggered Gonzalez, and his killing need intensified. He darted swiftly around. Gonzalez did not attack immediately. He would look for his opponent's blind spot. He had thought that last attack was a sure hit, but Wang Zheng had actually avoided it. In that instant, when light turned to darkness, normal people would have an instant of disorientation. Even those who adapted quickly would misperceive his speed. But after this, the pain would increase one's sensitivity. Gonzalez had much experience in this regard. After a few seconds, the clarity that pain brought would become a weakness of the body. This was the moment that he would attack. That was why he would maintain the pressure now, and not give his opponent a chance to recover. After 5 seconds, Gonzalez attacked. The titanium knife sliced through the night, tinged with a biting wind that caged Wang Zheng. The Darkness Empire's highest killing technique 18 death points sequence. There were 18 points on the body that were fatal, on which attacks were concentrated. After being targeted, Under normal conditions, as long as one had enough speed in the fight, it was unbeatable for human reaction times. The first hit scored on Wang Zheng. Although it was not a direct connection, he could continue. But at this moment, Wang Zheng began to move, his feet stepping in a curious pattern. His body swayed with the knife. The second blow missed. Third blow missed. There was no reaction time for such an attack. Military schools emphasized rhythm in a fight. Accumulate, prepare, explode. But there was no such time to waste in the army. After a quick test, proceed speedily to the weak points discovered, and then finish the fight. That was Gonzalez's rhythm. In this era where attack was king, such a rhythm was also dominant. Many of the empires swore by it. That was why it was said that a good military student was not necessarily a good soldier. Although the last two attacks had missed, Gonzalez still controlled the pace. At this time, Lin Feng and the rest could slowly begin to follow the movements. That one's eyes could follow did not mean that one's body could also keep up. Gonzalez struck at the best moments. Even the choice of timing when night descended was the best for both offense and defense. But the fourth blow that Gonzalez regarded as a sure kill, a diagonal slice to the ribs, had missed. Something was wrong now. This slice should have sliced through the gap in his ribs, but Wang Zheng's body twisted past it. Logically, he should have already been reduced to despair 3 strokes ago, but Wang Zheng was moving again. Lin Feng could see his footwork clearly. Wang Zheng did not retreat, but was moving on his original spot. His movements seemed random, but in truth there seemed to be a pattern to it. Fifth attack missed. Gonzalez's senses were tingling. The black heart arts were coalescing within his body. His knife speed increased again. In the dark, the titanium knife was like a vampire, glinting with an evil, dark red light. Such a light would definitely confound the eye, and even camouflage the attacker. This was the ultimate move of Blackheart arts. Although it was a small technique, but the effect was terrifying. The sixth attack missed. Immediately, the light changed. Wang Zheng had already shut his eyes. Wang Zheng was equally experienced at battling in the dark, and even more complicated environments, although he had never faced an opponent as adept as Gonzalez before. He opened his perimeter. In the darkness, there was only a knife, and it became clearer than ever. Gonzalez's footwork was fixed, in support of his knife's movements. But Wang Zheng's plum blossom footwork had a myriad of variations that encompassed all sorts of changes. When Wang Zheng had first started training it, it had been painful and bone-breaking. And such extreme training made his currently extreme situation seem less extreme. Another thing which threw Gonzalez's judgment off was that Wang Zheng did not feel pain, and there was no opening like he had expected. The seventh slice went wide. The eighth, ninth, a high-speed triple slash. The demonic dark knife absorbed all light and sought the end to life. But Wang Zheng's movements and body eluded it each time, baffling him. In the darkness, Lin Feng and the rest did not look away. Similarly, at such a distance, on such a battlefield, they could clearly experience every detail. Close up to the danger, they could glean much as well. Lear narrowed his eyes. He had seen this footwork somewhere before. The key was not in the high-difficulty contortions, but in the synchronicity with his footwork. Because Gonzalez maintained high-pressure attacks, Wang Zheng became more and more calm. He depended on his footwork variations. Contrarily, the more that Gonzalez sought these consecutive killing moves, the more dead his body became. But the best killing move of the Darkness Empire was not that simple. The consecutive misses did not cause Gonzalez to panic, but instead become more concentrated. The Blackheart arts entered his bloodstream, and his knife's edge unerringly chased down Wang Zheng. The slightest mistake would cost him his life. If he had ability X, Mars would definitely have blocked the blade, and then clubbed his opponent to death. Delaying it this way was not good. Although Wang Zheng's agile footwork seemed to buy him an advantage, such techniques often save the most fatal for last. And it was especially targeted at pros. Because he had adapted a beat slower to the darkness, Wang Zheng could not draw his knife. And it was too late now. This was a hidden danger. With ability X, Wang Zheng could have used certain changes to counter, and had an entire arsenal available, such as his instant inferno break, etc. All of them could alleviate the pressure. But without ability X, it was extremely difficult for one on the defense to turn the tables. But that could not be helped. Wang Zheng was a sitting duck. His opponent had come prepared, even for him, and Wang Zheng had not escaped his plan. The next few cuts were even more cold, but Wang Zheng's footwork found even more agility. His steps blended with his body's twists, and sometimes even in a contrasting manner. But this was not unexpected. At this level, one's body would move in a polished manner, but to coordinate well in such a dire situation was indeed difficult. In the blink of an eye, 16 attacks had passed. The violent aura of Gonzalez filled the air, and he seemed a little discontent and angry. Those present might be affected, or someone of Zhang Zun's skill level might feel elated, because there would definitely be a refractory period after a continuous attack. But Lin Feng and the rest were completely riveted. There was no pause. God! The charging Gonzalez actually held another titanium blade. A second blade. In the dark, he was like a poisonous scorpion with two stingers. This was the titanium blade that Gonzalez had taken from one of his victims. The 17th and 18th blades flew out simultaneously. This change already left them really surprised. And the angle was just nice for Lin Feng to see a cold glint in Gonzalez's mouth. Poison needles. A fatal scorpion stinger. All three moves at the same time. He was definitely doomed. Mars had clenched his fist, but he was too late. At such a level of competition, one's life could be over in an instant, and there was no chance to save him. Gonzalez's battle tactics were too rich, and tore down all defenses. It was rare to see such a dirty trick, even in the military. It was difficult to master, but once you did, it became a powerful tool in battle. Lear finally smiled. This was exactly the result he was hoping for. The world was vast, and any who thought they could conquer the world alone was trash. There was only one end for them: death. Without ability X, you could not dodge it even if you were invincible. Both knives locked you in, and the poison needles was a sure kill. Even if Wang Zheng avoided a fatal blow, the needles would carry a little something. Otherwise, he would not have hidden them for so long. This was not Lear seeing shadows, but if it were him, it was what he would have done. Two knives moving simultaneously, with the poison needles for the finisher. In a flash, Gonzalez became extremely calm. He was waiting for Wang Zheng to act, to strike a killing pose. When his opponent had no more moves, he was like a fish on the chopping block. But in that instant, Wang Zheng actually did not move. Although his body did not move, Wang Zheng's pupils suddenly burst with a golden light. The primordial regression technique's accumulated energy had reached a peak. Roar! Celebratory shouts. Wang! Instantly, everyone's ears were filled with a roar. Up close, Gonzalez bore the full brunt of it. In the silent, dark battlefield, there was suddenly an explosion of lightning. Primordial regression technique. Lion thunder. Gonzalez wanted to avoid it, but he could not. His completely offensive countenance aside, he had been in full control of the initiative up till now. Most importantly, such a manner of attack was completely unprecedented. How could he have seen it coming? Instantly, blood spurted from his every orifice. Gonzalez almost swallowed the poison needles, and they scored his cheek. With a supernatural instinct for survival, Gonzalez rolled and ran off into the forest without a backward glance. If he did not leave, he would never get a chance to. Gonzalez felt his face numbing on one side. Although he had already used the antidote, but the numbing effect was very strong. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels had also been ruptured by this roar. Worse, his head was in a jumble. If it were not for his training which had told him to run, he would have died without question. He had lost. And lost big. Wang Zheng did not pursue, and could not. Because Lear was already in his way, his smile in place. Mars lit the campfire and restored light. He hoped they had some shred of humanity left. The 3 slightly dazed Auslan fighters were standing around. Wang Zheng's belly and neck were still bleeding. Wang Zheng ripped off his shirt to stem the knife wound. He took a deep breath and treated his wounds. As for Lear's tricks, he did not pay them mind. Firstly, he had no intention of pursuing. Secondly, this was Lear, who would always look for any advantage. It was almost like he could not be at ease if he did not have the petty advantage. Lear watched Wang Zheng's reaction. Especially when he was wounded, he judged the situation, and then executed his plan. He must still be conserving energy and moves. Others might have felt that Wang Zheng was a conservative fighter, but only Lear knew that this guy was storing aces up his sleeves. The more he stored, the longer he lived. Mars and Gonzalez had already revealed too, but a pity he did not know what Mars had revealed. But anything that could overwhelm Mars in one move must be his best move. The reason was that Mars had not sustained any obvious wounds, so the defeat must have been decisive, and in one move. What on earth was it? Lear did not know, which was why he was smiling. Wang Zheng looked at the Aslan crowd. Lear would not move on him. That coward need not be minded. Clap, clap, clap. Lin Feng was applauding. Bravo. The ability to make the Darkness Empire's special forces take a loss. Under different circumstances, we would have been done for the day, but you know, Wang Zheng. No rest but death. That's a little shameless. A gank plus consecutive battles. When did Aslan become like this? Dong burst out. The battle just now had made their hearts beat wildly, almost popping out. And now they thought it was over. Even if the noble Aslan warriors wanted to fight, they would choose tomorrow, or when Wang Zheng was recovered. But they were naive. Although I don't like it, that's what Wang Zheng brought on himself. He made himself the target, Ouyang Ruoliu said softly. Even so, this is SIG. It's a competition, not Dong that's only our view. To them, this is a war, and everyone is betting with their lives. Ouyang Ruoliu's family had seen too much of this, and was desensitized. Ouyang Ruoliu did not think much of it. She was in agreement with Lin Feng on this. I'm rooting for Wang Zheng starting now, Qian Shuidi said, directly declaring her position. Lin Feng and the rest were not being chivalrous, and she did not like that. Weiyan, what do you say? Weiyan's gaze had never left Wang Zheng. He was bleeding. Did it hurt? Why did she hurt? She was sad. For her sister, he would take on the world. But not for her. That made her heart hurt. Mars frowned. At this juncture, he did not want to just watch on. Wang Zheng shook his head, stopping Mars. Forget the niceties. For Weiyan's sake, I will not kill you. Will you come one by one, or all together? Badass. A badassery that was illogical. Even Lin Feng's anger turned to a laugh. From the side, Chenkinzade stood up. Against you, I alone will be enough. Remember my name. Aslan Official School's Chenkinzade. Di Maria did not rush forth. Physical technique was not his specialty. Although he was excellent, in order to specialize in ability X, he had only learnt basic breathing techniques, and no martial arts. His time ability was too unique, and he did not want other factors to interfere with it. Lear paused, cursing inwardly. What a bunch of imbeciles. Deceitful yet trying to be righteous. At this moment, they should just all pile on and finish Wang Zheng. Lear was clever, and he had calculated it well. Aslan was already pushing the limits here. If they ganked him, then Aslan was finished at this SIG. Everyone had their limits, except Lear. Gentlemen, this seems like a lively show. How about a wager? Bullet laughed. Mars had lost, and Gonzalez had run away. Next up was the Aslan gang, and many more awaited in the area. Lin Hong's face was dark. At this juncture, they were being brazen. The fact that they did not all gank him was their last shred of dignity. In the monitoring room, there were more than 10 people gathered. This boy's interesting. I like it. If he can live, we have to give him some perks. The one who spoke was Major General Qilong from Fairy Star. Fairy Star and the Darkness Empire were old rivals, and their history of death and enmity reached back for too long. Those of Fairy Star saw in terms of black and white, any who beat the Darkness Empire was their friend. The chances of this kid surviving is 0. I think it's pretty interesting. Given his ability, it'll be hard to catch him if he makes up his mind to run. The thing is, if he runs or not. Good to be young. I was once that impetuous as well. The scene was rather brutal, but the generals present had seen too much of it, and their mood was undampened, although they all looked on seriously. Wang Zheng made a very unwise decision. On the battlefield, Chenkinzadeh had pulled out his titanium blade. He was even more direct than Gonzalez. He would finish Wang Zheng in one swift move, and give him no opportunity to surrender. Lin Feng waved a hand for everyone to back off. Di Maria immediately knew what was up, and immediately retreated with no pretenses. Zhang Zun, you get back. Best if you find some shield, Mars said. Zhang Zun did not ask why. Whether in terms of ability or experience, he could not hold a candle to these people. In truth, Zhang Zun had felt his heart swell just now as well. The situation of his teammates had caused him to lose hope in the qualifiers, but today he realized that even at peak condition, they still stood no chance. This bunch of people were monsters. In the night, Chenkinzadeh's body floated on a layer of white light. The glow extended to his titanium blade, and did not stop it. Aslan Imperial Arts, Wind God Arts. Wang Zheng pulled his titanium blade, holding it in a reverse grip. He extended his perimeter, the primordial regression technique returning to a calm state after the last explosion. He was not a robot, so he had to accord power according to his strength. Besides, feinting and bluffing could buy you precious time. The opponent only needed to think about this battle, but he had to be concerned about what came after. It was not just the Aslan people in front of him, but he was sure that more were waiting in the forest. This was a battle where death was the only rest. Chenkinzadeh's killing power continued to rise, and the aura began to solidify. If it could be said that Gonzalez's fight was full of and still could not be decided, then Chenkinzadeh would be even more focused. With no regard to reputation or anything else, he would simply kill Wang Zheng, and render him unable to sully Aslan's dignity any further. This military official school captain was filled with killing power. Even if he ended up in military court, he could not let Wang Zheng live. Such a small fry had best cease thinking about loving Her Highness Aina. The titanium blade's cold, silver glow was as soft as mercury. Wang Zheng again felt the ripple of the wind. This was not Ability X, but martial arts. Ability X was humankind's channeling of energy through nature, whereas martial arts use the energy in a human's body. That was why whether the source of energy was external or internal, they were still strong. If Di Maria was said to specialize in Ability X, then Chenkinzadeh was the ultimate physical technique specialist. Or, maybe this was Kashan's ultimate move. The aura of both fighters continued to elevate, and they could feel the clear killing power of the other. Wang Zheng's eyes also began to glaze over. Mercy towards the enemy was cruelty towards oneself. His grip on the titanium blade also tightened. Kill. With a cry, Chenkinzadeh seized the initiative. His awesome aura paving the way, he slashed at Wang Zheng. This attack seemed to be as fast as lightning. It was not a misperception. The energy stream in his body was activated, allowing Chenkinzadeh to be so speedy, he could fly. The titanium blade sliced through the night. Shing. Wang Zheng instinctively leaned back, and the knife almost scalped him. In the trail of blood was some hair. Wind God Arts, Warping Beheader. In the darkness, Chenkinzadeh had already arrived. His knife was unstoppable. Di Maria smirked. He did not like Wang Zheng. Not this limelight stealer. Losers should have the bearing of a loser, and obediently grovel. He had thought that Elite Academy X would be his path to glory, but he had become a laughing stock. If it had not been his family working behind the scenes to salvage things, he would have taken double the losses. Chenkinzadeh's ability could not be questioned, as the number one in the military officer school. That was the place where the Aslan Empire's bravest warriors and officers were nurtured. There was no status, only ability. That Chenkinzadeh had made it this far had been on the basis of his ability alone. The Wind God Arts at this level could break air itself. There was nothing it could not overcome. The titanium blade was coated with a layer of light silver. It was especially sharp, and Wang Zheng not only had to dodge the knife blade itself, but also that mysterious energy. Mars could clearly feel that the Wind God Arts and the Heavenly Overlord attack were two completely different styles, although their effects seemed very similar. The Heavenly Overlord attack was about training strength, while the Wind God Arts sought speed. Of course, quick had to come with a powerful body supporting it. The difference was that once wind god arts reached a certain level, the speed alone could be enough to warp space. In a close melee, it was unbeatable. But it remained to be seen how well Changkinzadeh could utilize it in a mecha fight. Changkinzadeh immediately unleashed all he had against the other pro. Wang Zheng's mind was occupied, whereas Changkinzadeh's was clear. He wanted to rest, and also had to think about the future. That was laughable. In the past, he would not have clashed with such a person at all. But in this moment, he would cruelly press this point, and drive his opponent from the world. The killing power flashed, and the titanium blade sparkled. Wang Zheng was not as composed as when facing Gonzalez. He had to move even more exaggeratedly, and use greater body movements to evade Changkinzadeh's attacks. His titanium blade was for defense, and now it was a prop. Unless it was a special angle, he had no way to counter. And all the radioactive attacks could not be blocked, only avoided. Changkinzadeh pressed closer, step by step. He did not want to give Wang Zheng any breathing room. At this moment, everyone could see that Changkinzadeh's intention to kill did not let up at all. He was even more savage than Gonzalez had been. Wang Zheng had really dug his own grave this time. Against Changkinzadeh's steady press forward, Wang Zheng had no immediate counter. He was still suspecting that the opponent might choose to suicide with him at the crucial moment. In terms of protecting their nation, the Aslan people were no less fanatical than the Arbitans. And this Changkinzadeh was the classic example. As for knife aura, Wang Zheng was no stranger. Actually, he understood such a way of attack better than some others. It was just that Changkinzadeh's knife aura was not a real knife aura. The key was that the wind god art's internal energy had created enough power to warp space. But in the last battle, Wang Zheng had expended some energy, and he had to regulate himself if he did not want to sustain an internal injury. So he could only dodge what he was faced with. Changkinzadeh had seen this moment, and with a wild slash, shing. A cruel sliding cleave, and Wang Zheng's body seemed to have reached its limit. A flash of frosty light swept past. Just as it was about to land, Wang Zheng suddenly twisted away, a leg sweeping out. Changkinzadeh leapt up. Wang Zheng, supported with one hand, lashed out with a leg. Ping! Changkinzadeh retreated, and both drew the distance apart. After a furious but fruitless onslaught, Changkinzadeh also had to reassess the situation. Boom! Rumble! The surrounding trees all collapsed. The tree that Zhang Zun was behind suddenly cleaved into two and fell. From the forest, startled cries could be heard. A few were walking towards the battlefield, and now their tracks were exposed. There was no need to hide anymore. As for Changkinzadeh on the battlefield, he was too occupied to care about them. Wang Zheng's belly had sustained another cut, and almost on the original position. He was soaked with blood. Wang Zheng knew that he had not been able to dodge one knife. Compared to a bone injury, such flesh wounds were better. Wang Zheng looked at his injury position and jabbed at 3 points, stemming the blood flow. Such a method of stemming was a sealing technique that was not good for the body, although it was definitely better than bleeding to death. But unless he was forced to, Wang Zheng would not want to use it either. A pity that his opponent was not so easy to deal with. Wang Zheng's primordial regression technique filled his body. He could see a throng. The Manalasuo people had arrived as well. Today was really lively. It seemed like he was a lamb to the slaughter, at full attendance. Boom! A wave of energy exploded from Wang Zheng's body. The primordial regression technique's energy filled the entire area, and everyone's expressions changed. Lin Feng's composure was finally shaken. Wang Zheng's body was glowing with golden light. This indicated that his physical technique was very special, and it was definitely of the highest level as well. It was either some secret art, or his talent was outstanding. Changkinzadeh could not care about this. He would take advantage of his opponent's infirmities. Changkinzadeh held another 2 titanium blades in his hands. He clenched one between his teeth, the blade facing outwards. Wind God flowing triple strike. Ping! With a loud explosion, the ground shattered and Changkinzadeh barreled down on Wang Zheng like a tornado. His 2 titanium blades slashed out in a cross. This time round, Wang Zheng did not dodge, but answered with a palm break. Boom! 2 waves of energy directly shattered, following which Wang Zheng's foot was already flying. Changkenzade immediately leapt up at astonishing speed, he was dodging. The power from Wang Zheng's palm was astounding. He could actually break his knife aura. But Changkenzade was not surprised. Lin Feng looked at Lear. This was according to Lear's intelligence. After feeling that power, Changkenzade believed Lear. This Wang Zheng's physical technique was probably one of the best at SIG. It could even be the best. In a straight fight, once he committed everything, it was difficult to secure a win. In order to win, he would have to do so before Wang Zheng made up his mind. Ultimate move. This was Lear's suggestion. The ultimate move was to look death in the eye. Lear dearly wanted to know what the level of Aslan's military officer school was. In midair, he flipped towards Wang Zheng, but he also executed a sequence of actions so quickly that it could not be followed. In this moment, Changkenzade's body exploded with energy, and he arrived behind Wang Zheng at lightning speed. Wind God Arts, Wind God Acceleration Body. The light around Changkenzade's body had already disappeared. This was the new soldier technique that Aslan had researched for many years. They had broken down many of the usage methods surrounding martial arts. Aslan would never find it troublesome. They would always overcome. From the start, Changkenzade had not wanted to reveal this method of fighting, but seeing the golden light enveloping Wang Zheng, he chose to fight with his life. His two blades circled Wang Zheng and descended. At the same time, the knife in his mouth lanced towards Wang Zheng's neck. A longer weapon was always quicker. Changkenzade was already playing with fire, and pitting all he had, his life. As long as he descended, Wang Zheng would be assassinated. Normally, those who specialized in speed were more careful. But Changkenzade had actually unleashed the most deadly move at the highest speed. Lion Thunder. It was only effective from the front. And against a prepared warrior, it was difficult to achieve the same effect as it had on Gonzalez. Lear wanted to see what else Wang Zheng had prepared. Wang Zheng was definitely good at using the blade, and even in warping space. But Changkenzade's move did not allow him to exercise his potential at all. Many pros fell because they could not bring their ability forth. Of course, Changkenzade could very well be repelled by Wang Zheng, and sustain severe injuries or die in the counterattack. But he did not care at all. In that instant, Lear still had a grave expression. After all, the Aslan people were still needed. Shing. The two knives crossed in a flurry of sparks. Changkenzade's arms were numb from the shock. Wang Zheng had actually disappeared. The only possibility was escape. Instantly, Changkenzade wanted to pursue, but everyone was shocked. What was that? In the dark night, Wang Zheng was actually floating in midair. Mars, Zhang Zun, Lin Feng, Di Maria, and everyone else were stunned. Even if they were all worldly, none had seen this before. Some ability X, like gravitational types, could achieve levitation, but it was a useless novelty. And now, no one could use ability X, so how had Wang Zheng done it? Wang Zheng was in midair. In the instant of danger, he had simply wanted to jump, but the primordial regression technique had achieved harmony across 5 cycles, and as long as he held his breath, he could have such a balance, rendering gravity useless. It was an incomparably divine sensation. Boom! Wang Zheng's head tilted, and a bolt of laser flew past his ear. Wang Zheng's fury raged for the first time. On the battlefield, they were pitting their best abilities, and he had been prepared for such an epic battle. But that damn sneak attack, had he killed their father? Damn, that was asking for it. The titanium blade flew into the trees, a beam of golden light sweeping through. Boom! The ground shattered, and the trees fell. A whale. It was Ghana Star's Captain Forgan. Forgan had not even had time to celebrate his shot, when he sensed danger. He reacted extremely quickly, and immediately flung his arm up. Seeing Wang Zheng streaking towards him, Forgan immediately activated his energy shield and stared at Wang Zheng malevolently. What can you do to me? If I'm eliminated, you'll die too. Wang Zheng gave him a cold smile. There was still 7 or 8 meters of distance. His titanium blade returned to spinning, and the golden light flashed out. He did not even turn back. Boom! Energy shield broken. Forgan was frightened out of his wits. You idiot, what do you think you, arg? Forgan suddenly realized that his body was canting forward, his intestines pooling on the ground. Wang Jung did not look. Things like an energy shield were too weak when faced with warp effects. Especially at this level. He did not move very quickly. This entire sequence of actions was very draining. He needed to be firmer, and harsher. After this exchange, the Aslan people had realized the gravity of the situation. They had not thought that the energy shield would actually be useless. Lear had not anticipated that Wang Jung would make a breakthrough within this time. Such a temporary loss of control existed in martial arts, and was not rare in that era. Once your martial arts reached a certain level, flight was not a problem. But in this era, it was but a fancy. But Wang Jung had done it. In that instant, Lear's seriousness was no affectation anymore. Brother Lin, if we continue to watch on, Brother Chenkin might not live to see tomorrow, Lear said mildly. If Lin Feng and Di Maria acted, he might be confident enough to fight as well. With the four of them, it was impossible that they could not finish off Wang Jung. Lin Hong frowned slightly, but whether because of intelligence or curbing his impulses, he did not say much. As the head of the Aslan Royal College, and also the imperial family, he had to consider not just the results. Wang Jung's ability was truly startling. This Lear is detestable, Dong said. The series of events had left the four girls blinking non-stop. They had ducked for some gruesome moments, and now they realized that heroes were not as fine as what they imagined. Lin Weiyan peeked through her own hand. Ouyang Ruoliu was regretting a little that she had brought them to see this. This SIG was like a special forces fight, and even she felt a little sick. Your Highness, you had best not watch, Ouyang Ruoliu said. Although she was a daring one, she was very scared of Kashan. But seeing Lin Weiyan's countenance, Ouyang Ruoliu was stunned. If Aina was the emblem of intellect and victory, then Lin Weiyan was the epitome of warmth and good. She was never thought of in the same sentence as tenacity, but in this moment, Ouyang Ruoliu saw no fear in Weiyan's eyes, only tenacity. Lin Weiyan shook her head slightly. Wang Jung was bleeding non-stop from an ear, and perhaps his hearing was affected. How she wanted to go to him. Weiyan gritted her teeth. Her hands were all sweaty. If Senior Lin Feng agrees with Lear, I'll never worship him again. Qian Shuidi said. The generals were waiting and laughing. Ghana Star was but a clown at intermission. If it had been Aslan who had done it, then they would have been utterly disgraced. After all, this was SIG, and there were still limits. This limit was not set by anybody, but an unspoken custom in everybody's hearts. 4-on-1. Lin Feng was about to do it. And Aslan's good name would die with his deed. Lin Hong was calm. He believed that Lin Feng would not do anything that inane. But he began to dislike that Lear more and more. Watching Wang Jung emerge from the forest, the stone-faced Chenkinzade actually showed some resolve. Nobody come. This is a one-on-one. I'll settle this with him. Lin Hong breathed out in relief. Aslan people had to dare to fight. If they did not even dare to challenge, then they were really representatives of cowardice. Wang Jung's gaze swept past Lin Feng. He did not care in the slightest if all of them came at once. It fixed on Chenkinzade. Block my blade, and I'll spare your life. Wang Jung's voice thundered. Chenkinzade suddenly turned back and stared at Lear. If anybody interferes, that means they have a problem with me. That means you declare the Zade family your enemy. Lin Feng. Today, Aslan can act no more. If I die, take my body. As the specialist in physical techniques, especially since his wind god arts was already at the 5th level, he was too clear of the difference between him and Wang Jung. Those weaker would not understand, but he saw too clearly. This punk had been preserving his strength, and biding his time so he could take on the whole SIG. For the princess's honor, he would die in battle. But he did not want this battle sullied. That knife from Wang Jung had shaken Chenkinzade awake. He was telling Lin Feng not to lose the war over a battle. No matter what, the ability that Wang Jung displayed deserved respect. Lear indeed was planning to sneak attack, but after Chenkinzade's hint, he extinguished his hope. Lear would further relations with Aslan. Di Maria was extremely dissatisfied with Chenkenzade's stuffy traditions, but at this moment, he was also beginning to realize the implications of being from Aslan. The Ganons could be shameless, but they could not. Aslan ruled the galaxy in a large part due to their pride and reputation. Chenkinzade raised his knives in both hands. His aura continued to rise, but he could feel the intense pressure emanating from Wang Zheng. He was especially aware of the power in the moment he had killed the Ganon. His own wind god arts were not suited for defense, but every physical technique tended to the aggressive. The Ganon could use the energy shield, but he could not. If he did, then he would forever stay in this position, even if he lived. Danger! Danger! Danger was here. Shing! Chenkinzade's blade pierced his own left thigh cleanly through. Another knife followed, and his third knife pierced his left hand. Blood gushed out, but Chenkinzade's aura not only did not lessen, but instead rose. That light silver aura actually became even more intense. 3 knives 6 holes stimulation. The blinding pain compounded with the madness of battle was the perfect chance for a breakthrough. Wind God 6th tier. Chenkinzade's right hand held only one titanium blade. His life force immediately rose to previously impossible levels. His body hunched over. Chenkinzade put all his energy into this knife. He entered a zen state he had never reached before. Lin Feng started to back up. Mars frowned and followed suit. And Zhang Zun immediately drew the distance further. He was afraid that an even more unbelievable showdown was about to take place. Womb. With Chenkinzade's body as the center, a 2-meter radius immediately exploded, overwhelming energy that was visible to the naked eye bursting forth. Roar. Titanium blade thrumming. Chenkinzade focused all his energy and maintained a level of terrifying strength. Chenkinzade was putting his life on the line now, in order to maintain a warrior's dignity. He would fight for the princess's honor with his life. Each and every day, he was in the added gravity room training without pause. Unbelievably serious training, just for that girl. When he was young, he had seen that little girl on television, and Chenkinzade had sworn to be her knight. To fight for her smile. He had toiled on every day, and finally stood at the pinnacle of the military officer school, in order to qualify for that life and death battle for Aina. That was his wish in this life. Chenkinzade gripped the titanium blade in both hands. Ha! His energy gushed forth, a silver beam that rose to the heavens. Wang Zheng's body was slightly hunched, the titanium blade held in a reverse grip. The primordial regression technique's strength was already bottled silently. For Aslan's glory. Suddenly, Chenkinzade's eyes glowed. He raised his knife and brought it down, Wind God Sky tier. Wang Zheng acted slower by half a beat, but his hands did not hesitate. His body spinning, his titanium blade swept out. An arc of golden light flew out. Wang! Boom! The horizontal golden light clashed with the vertical silver light, and exploded into mist. But not even a split second later, the silver light dissipated, and the golden light crashed into Chenkinzade. Rumble. In an instant, someone had appeared beside Chenkinzade. It was Lin Feng. Zeus Arts. Thunder Shift. He hoisted Chenkinzade up, and Di Maria had already pulled his titanium blade. At this time, there was no more talk of rules. But Lin Feng suddenly raised a hand to hold Di Maria back. He looked at Wang Zheng with a complex look in his eyes. Shing shing shing, boom. The trees around them were in a bad state. They had all fallen down. Even when they had no access to ability X, they could raise such power. Was this the true potential of physical techniques? Zhang Zun had his horizons widened. Previously, he was a frog in the well. Lear did not care about this bunch of Aslan idiots. He was busy judging how much power Wang Zheng had used. Such a knife attack, unless dodged, would definitely inflict some damage. Wang Zheng's body must have sustained injury as well. That damned guy was best at acting. Was he acting or not? At that moment, Lin Feng sighed. He bowed slightly. Wang Zheng, we owe you one. In the qualifiers, the Aslan people will retreat. But if we meet in the actual competition, we will show no mercy. Lin Feng carried Chenkinzade and threw down a tag before leaving with Di Maria. Before he left, he turned to look at Lear, who continued to smile, but did not move. The Aslan people left without a backward glance. Wang Jung did not care about the Aslan people scurrying away, nor how many opponents there were. Only, in the last moment, he could feel that Zade, facing death, was protecting the same thing as he was, only that they stood on different sides. Regardless, he was proud of Aina. He knew that his girl was a unique existence. The same result, but their thinking was completely at odds. Lear did not want to leave, because there was still a chance. The damned Wang Jung was cunning. If he had killed Zade, then Lin Feng would have fought to the death. Combined with him and Di Maria, they could have definitely killed Wang Jung and avenged Aslan. But this bastard had actually spared Zade, which left Aslan neither here nor there. Damn, that was too shameless. Clap 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 clap. In the monitoring room, Lin Hong had started clapping. This was for Wang Jung, and not for Aslan. Lin Feng had conducted himself correctly. The mighty must act with the bearing and character of the mighty. Since they had lost, they must admit it. Admitting it was not giving up. Rather, it was living to fight another day. SIG had just begun, and there was no need to stake all their dignity and victory in the qualifiers. Especially under these circumstances, a win was also a lose. Don't forget the bigger picture. The other generals did not comment much, but all knew of Lin Feng's power. This military leader that the Aslan royalty could not handle contempt. Rashness, environmental factors, added to an immature Di Maria, and instigating Lear. None of this had affected his judgment. Mars smiled slightly. He did not feel like Wang Jung intended to win by reputation. This person was straightforward, and left one frustrated. But seeing those outside the field, Mars could not help but frown. Today was, unfortunately, not over. He could barely hold himself back. Everybody had their own limits. And some were just too shameless. Wang Jung's gaze swept across the field. All was silent, but somehow 20 more people had appeared. They were all the elites of the Milky Way Alliance's younger generation. And all of them had come for one person. Since the Aslan people have retreated, all tag in. Manalasuo Empire's Jondi Lilac, the Golden Wheel Battle Team's captain, and the mental leader of the Manalasuo younger generation was up. Beside Jondi Lilac was Leah Sphinx's super soldier, Chichin Nakai. Chichin Nakai had a taunting smirk on his lips. He was carefree. Not far away, the Sea Queen battle team's Atlantean captain, Dina Atlas, had arrived as well. The sealing bracelet was very effective on humans, but what about its effects on the Atlanteans, who were specialists in mental energy? That was what Wang Jung, covered in wounds, would find out. Of course, there was still Lear, who refused to leave. Wang Jung stood there. This knife wound had opened again, but that was no longer important. Wang Jung looked at Jondi Lilac and Chichin Nakai, Manalasuo and Leah Sphinx, and a whole crowd's hungry eyes behind. Perhaps today would be the end. But he would let Kashan know that this meant nothing. Are you coming all together, or one by one? Wang Jung said. His voice was even, and his knife steady. Jondi Lilac, as a Manalasuo person, liked this guy. Besides that he was soft, he was basically the perfect opponent. But how much did he have left? 30%? 50%? If it were not for Aina, he would have been unwilling to fight under such circumstances. But he knew that this was no time to be naive. He had passed that age. But it was not very honorable to fight now. Jondi, how about leaving this one to me? Chichin Nakai suddenly spoke. He had seen the doubt in Jondi's eyes. He understood Jondi Lilac's mind. When he was in his 20s, he had been the same way. Of course, he had long shed such childish thinking. It could be called heroic, but it was actually stupid and suicidal. Doomed was doomed, and he might as well take the credit. Jondi Lilac knew Chichin Nakai's intention. He would gain favor, and could also sit this one out. He understood. Jondi Lilac smiled slightly. Since Brother Nakai has intentions, I'll spectate. Chichin Nakai looked around. No one would object. Even a pig would be hiding right now. Although Wang Jung was clearly at a big disadvantage, not just anybody could reap it. Chichin Nakai was said to be in the top 200x leaderboards. His exact ranking was unclear, but any who could enter this position was already a legend. Even among the elites, not many had seen such a pro. The X-leaderboards was not just about school evaluations. One had to have sufficient battle results, and this was not about how many enemies defeated, but also included missions of extreme difficulty, sufficiently awesome opponents, and the accumulation of the above. Chichen Nakai, like Gonzalez, should not be at SIG. And Chichen Nakai was even stronger than Gonzalez. Leah Sphinx was aiming high for this SIG. Chichen Nakai obviously knew the burden of the mission he had been entrusted with. His first move would be Wang Zheng. If Jondi Lilac was the one to act, he would have missed his chance. Bolette breathed a sigh of relief. Jondi Lilac was his pride and the Empire's future. He was not weaker than Lin Feng, and this was not a good time to act. Luckily, Chichen Nakai had stepped in. These guys did not understand Wang Zheng. Bolette felt like he saw clearer than they did. This was not just a matter of age, but also the experience of years. All these years, he had not someone as tenacious as Wang Zheng. What made him so tough? During IG, he was the same, soloing the worms and holding out till the end. Unless such a person died, one could not drop one's guard in the slightest. A pity that he could not tell these words of caution to the members. They would not believe him anyway. Wang Zheng's character came once in 100 years. But such a person was prone to a premature end. No one was invincible, and taking on Kashan before he was mature was not smart. Everyone present felt a little embarrassed and regretful. Many were also relaxed, because they knew that Wang Zheng would not live past this day. Before they knew it, a glimmer of light had come back into the sky, although it was still far from daylight. On Island B, the penned, fat sheep, plan had met with a great setback. Shing, shing, shing. A volley of blow darts fired, and some were hit and immediately pierced through, letting out shrieks. Everyone immediately dispersed, but the ground suddenly shook. They were hung in the air by their legs. Shing, shing, shing. Another 3 blow darts flew. Only those with quick reactions opened their energy shields and saved their lives. Those chasing Mu Gen halted. When had this trap been made? By their reckoning, the Tita people were simple-minded, 4-legged primitives who charged mindlessly ahead with their crude weapons. But now they realized that they were the dumb ones. At that moment, Mu Gen was shaving a blowgun with experience. All Tita soldiers were experts in this regard, and now, with the human-made advanced titanium blades, it was almost too easy. Giants were big, but not stupid. Their hands were very agile, and Mu Gen's human blood made him even more clever. Without ability X, and with hot weapons, the Tita people were the kings of the jungle. Mother Nature was home, and every blade of grass and tree was an ally. Mu Sen had an army at his command. Coming here, he remembered Mu Sen's words to him. The human world was even more dangerous, which was why he needed to be braver. He was the first warrior to venture out representing the Tita people. Do not shy from challenges, and do not fear the unknown. That was a warrior's glory. In the name of a brave, fight. Mu Gen had used the most difficult challenge among Tita warriors. When a tribe chased a single person, and the Tita warrior lived, then he would not only take the name of a brave, but could also conquer that tribe. This was the Tita people's way of deciding a battle. And now there was no difference, just a different opponent. The laser rang out, and Mu Gen agilely dived into the jungle. The trees were his best defense, and he had even fashioned a small, wooden shield for emergencies. In the dark, Mu Gen's eyes gleamed. The tough got going when the going got tough. If the enemies wanted to forego rest, that would be the time he struck. This was something that no one had anticipated. A demon had actually appeared on Island B to throw things into confusion. And this battle had let the Tita people move towards the Milky Way Alliance stage for real. Tita Star was seen as a small fish in battle, and many big countries slighted it. But here at SIG, it was a completely different matter. Without ability X and weapons of mass destruction, it seemed like humankind's ability to wage war was far inferior to the Tita people's. Actually, they had to thank the Lan family and Mu Sen. The Tita people's methods of war did not develop suddenly, but was gradual progress over decades. Mu Sen had used his own influence to shape the Tita people, and research the best tactics of humankind. He had combined the Tita people's formidable will to survive with their affinity for nature, and created the mighty fighting skills that the Tita people had today. The casualties on Island B were very high, especially in a few zones. Mu Gen was one zone, and Zhongshan was another. Zhongshan was not sleeping too well. FCK, where had everybody gone? Were they all dead? Or was he too awesome at hiding? There wasn't even a bird left around. It felt like all was quiet, and Zhongshan gingerly climbed out. There wasn't a single hair around. What the hell? After making a quick round, besides a discarded supply bag, he had not found any other enemy. This luck was so good, it made Zhongshan panicky. More accurately, others had gone elsewhere. Island B had a few main battlegrounds, and his luck had held and he had tided through the tough times. Assessing his own ability, Zhongshan decided not to risk it. One had to be prudent, and keeping his cool at the critical moment was the most important. First, pass the qualifiers, then they would see at the main competition. Since this place was so good, he would not move. There was food and drink, and a lack of exercise. After a month, he could grow fat. Chichin Nakai had a relaxed expression. He looked at Wang Zheng but made no immediate moves. He knew that his opponent was recovering, but did not mind. Even if Wang Zheng was in perfect condition, he still had a 70% chance of winning. General Dooley was smiling. If it were someone else, that would be a different matter. But since it was his own soldier, he would favor his own. Chichin Nakai had some problems in leadership. Because of his overwhelming ability, he was not as good at seeing the bigger picture. But that could be trained. He had sent him here this time to take the championship. In individual strength, Dooley was absolutely confident. Chichin Nakai was mature, and had killed 3 Earth rank warriors before. He had completed 4 A rank missions for the Milky Way Alliance. His ability was unparalleled. The other generals were watching silently. Wang Zheng was doomed in this round. Actually, there was no need to continue going hard. Only with life was there hope. Being too unyielding was a bad thing. Actually, it's quite a pity for this kid. How about giving him a chance? Bolette suddenly said. At this point, even a pig would know that Wang Zheng was accepting his fate grimly. It was quite irrational and stubborn. But if he really died like that, it was really a waste. Bolette, since when did Manalasuo become so charitable? Is this guy your bastard child? Damn, this kid is full of potential. I'm speaking from the perspective of humankind. We can just rule him defeated. Bolette was really being loving here. Manalasuo walked Arbiter's path, and dared to speak and scold without fear. They were heedless of what others said about them. To stand up for Wang Zheng meant that he must have been moved by this kid's guts. But in truth, this suggestion had no real power. Such blatant interference was impossible. But if Wang Zheng surrendered of his own accord, no one would stop him. More than 40 people had gathered in the area. Most of the surviving captains on Island A had come. It was hard not to know when the commotion was this big. Zhengyang frowned, but in the end sighed. Forget it. Done was done, and at least Wang Zheng would not bother I Xiaolu's life. Chichin Nakai walked steadily to the middle. Each step had a measured cadence. Slow, yet heavier than the last. Changing aura. With this move, he demonstrated that he was more advanced in tier and understanding compared to the previous opponents. A huge difference. This Chichin Nakai's ability was roughly at Earth 3 level, and this was definitely the highest present. Seeing Wang Zheng continue to hold on and make use of his time to recover, Chichin Nakai smiled. I'm starting. As soon as he spoke, Chichin Nakai moved, quick as lightning. With a tremendous boom, he attacked. Boom. Wang Zheng could not even react, but was directly hit, flying back more than 10 meters. Crack. His left shoulder, the sound of bone breaking. Wang Zheng's brows raised. He had defended, but this punch had too much power. Although he did not know what arts his opponent was using, but it had to be the extremely penetrating type. Wang Zheng's left shoulder sagged. He took a deep breath and walked back towards the middle. Chichin Nakai had a playful smile. Struggle, bravery, respect. It was all nonsense. He had seen too many of such trash that did not know their own strength. But it was exactly because such trash existed that could he become who he was. Feeling the gazes around him, Wang Zheng's end was up to him. His legend would be built further. All these people would continue to grow into threats. And putting some shade into their hearts now could only be a good thing. Qichin Nakai's body burned with waves of blood red. His body energy became prodigious. That awesome life force mixed with killing power was the strongest seen so far. In the same situation, Gonzalez was indeed weaker than Qichin Nakai by a tier. This guy was the real, overqualified, member, and it was too much. All the generals present had their last hope extinguished. The moment Qichin Nakai attacked, they knew the difference. Wang Zheng was Earth 2 at best, and Qichin Nakai was a full tier above him. Of course, this was in terms of ability X, but strong ability X needed a strong body to withstand and respond. Qichin Nakai was also Leah Sphinx's special ace team's captain. His physical technique went without saying. Xing. Wang Zheng had not reached the center yet when Qichin Nakai already executed a high-speed lunge to come in front of Wang Zheng. A vicious chop towards Wang Zheng's neck. Wang Zheng immediately reacted. The plum blossom steps would save him this time, but... boom. This punch landed solidly, and Wang Zheng was again sent flying. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and was smashed on the floor. Another big mouthful of blood he could not hold down. He retched it out. Qichin Nakai laughed. More of the same. He really thought he was a plaything. If he was perfectly fine, such a strange variation of footwork might have a little use. But as a half-disabled creature, how dare he try to act? Zhang Zun could not resist. He wanted to intervene, but Mars held him back, shaking his head. Wang Zheng stood up again. The gap was huge. At first it seemed like Wang Zheng could hold out through sheer willpower, but in truth, thought reflected power. In terms of endurance, he was already not on the same level. Wang Zheng, if you declare today in front of everybody that you swear you will be a lazy, docile toad from this day on, then sparing your life would not be difficult, Qichin Nakai said. He was setting things up for his own killing hand. He meant that although he was taking advantage here, the main reason was because this Wang Zheng did not know what was good for him. Posturing till the end, that was suicidal. Lear was watching everything closely. His neck was torn, and quite a few ribs had been broken as well. This one was in the bag. Even if a freak bolt of lightning appeared, he would find a way to slip a helping knife in. Maybe he would not even be needed. Aragorn, the Atlanteans, and a few others lurking would all be waiting. People did not remember the methods, only the results. After all, it was human nature to forget, and only the result was important. As for Princess Aina, that was a matter for the living to consider. The dead could rest. Weiyan, don't do anything foolish. Ouyang Ruoliu was hugging Lin Weiyan tightly. Whether she could make it in time aside, she was really about to call Lin Hong. Even setting aside the question of whether it was useful, it would be another outcry in the royal family. Seeing Wang Zheng in such a wounded state, Lin Weiyan discovered that she was not strong at all. Not in the least. Qian Shuidi and Dong Er were hugging Weiyan as well. Both girls, already at an emotional age, began crying as well. Only, all of them were helpless, unless Wang Zheng surrendered, and then he could only do so if he were given the chance. Aina had closeted herself in her room for a few days. No one knew how dangerous her decision had been. Sometimes, she wondered if things would have been better if she had hardened her heart and not told him. In front of the dressing mirror, Aina stared at herself, but her mind was reliving the first time she had met Wang Zheng. Those were happy times. Carefree days. Little by little, always together. Then the split, and then coming back together because of their longing. Even when they had forgotten, they would unconsciously come together. On her dresser was not a comb, but a golden dagger. Very pretty, said to be an antique. Every royal member had one. This was to tell every member that the Aslan Empire's royalty was as elegant and sharp as a blade. If they could not be together, then departing together was not bad either. The skylink next to her rang. Each time it rang, it was like a deadly siren. And now the danger was coming for her. Wang Zheng, knowing you, liking you, those were the proudest moments of my life. In the darkness, Aina's voice was light but firm. Like a dagger in hand. No one could stop this battle. And there was no way it could be stopped. Chichin Nakai pulled out a blade. The previous two attacks had been tests. He was meticulous. Delays were prone to unexpected changes. The third blow would be the fatal one with no misses. The primordial regression technique's aura began to surface. Clearly, it was much weaker than what it was before. More accurately, it was so weak that it was pitiful. Contrasted to Chichin Nakai on the other side, whose aura inspired despair. Faced with such a disparity, Chichin Nakai still pulled out his titanium blade and moved into an offensive stance. Wang Zheng instead closed his eyes, waiting for death. On the field, no one would show mercy. They were professional soldiers, and all of them had been through life and death battles. Chichin Nakai was even clearer that Wang Zheng was not planning to sit and invite death, but was gambling with his life. "I'll leave your corpse in one piece." Chichin Nakai sneered, his eyes hard. "I can't." Wang Zheng's voice was soft, but peaceful. Xing. Chichin Nakai glowed with a red light. He closed in at speed. Wang Zheng was moving as well, with just his right hand. What was he trying to do? No knife. Was he trying to poke him? Xing. There was only 5 meters between the two now. Chichin Nakai suddenly rose in the air. Was he overthinking it? The titanium blade was imbued with an intense red aura, and lit the whole sky. This was the real finisher. Wang Zheng extended his right hand. In that instant, time seemed to stop. Space seemed to warp around and be attracted to this right hand. More accurately, it was one finger that reached out slowly. Wang Zheng's body did not have a shred of energy left in it, because all of the primordial regression technique's energy was in this finger. He concentrated the primordial regression technique's power, and bet with his life. Separation. Atomic break. Boom. In the darkness, a beam of light burst forth like a star. It penetrated everything. It was over in an instant. Chichin Nakai's power on his knife had dissipated, but it seemed like an illusion. In mid-air, Chichin Nakai seemed unchanged, he could levitate too. After 1 second, whoom, both within and out of the battlefield, there was silence. Chichin Nakai had exploded into a puff of mist, floating in the air. A breeze blew by, and the blood danced into nothingness. Wang Zheng did not watch him go. His right hand's finger was broken. Not just that, but after containing all that energy, his entire right hand was rendered useless. But what did that matter? Everyone was watching Wang Zheng in silence. He raised his head. Who's next? His voice was soft, but everyone heard him. Seeing him covered in blood, his limbs hanging limply, Wang Zheng looked like he could be knocked down with a feather. But of all the pros present, all these self-hailed first in the world, leaders of their generation, not a single one said a word. A pause. It was still silent, and no one moved. Jondi Lilac did not move a muscle. Logically, he was up next, but he did not move. Aragorn did not move either, and if neither moved, then no one else would. The entire field was completely taken by Wang Zheng's presence. In the monitoring room, Leah Sphinx's General Dooley's face was ashen. He was completely unable to believe what had just happened. How was this possible? Chichin Nakai was an Earth 3 super soldier, and unbeatable in the younger generation. How? Even these worldly generals were thoroughly shaken. This kid called Wang Zheng was only 21 years old, and this was the second time he had shaken the world. The bawling Weiyan had suddenly stopped, and the other 3 girls were stunned as well. Was he even human? But standing there covered in scars, this was when a man looked coolest. Suddenly, I find him really handsome. Qian Shuidi opened her eyes wide. If Her Highness Aina doesn't want him, leave him to me. After all, we're match-made, Dong Er said. Lin Weiyan suddenly raised her voice. Go away, he has a sister-in-law. In a different time, this would have been a joyous moment, enough to make the 4 girls cavort in joy, but suddenly, someone moved. And that move signified despair. Atlantis Sea Queen Battle Team's captain, Dina Atlas. The atmosphere became even more tense. Were they continuing? Wang Zheng's expression did not change. In the instant he stood out, he did not bear any more resentment. He would take the world on. Atlantean royalty, and an enigmatic Atlantean warrior. How much did Wang Zheng have left? Lear's inner conflict had finally ceased. If no one was going, he was going. He did not want to consider the consequences anymore. Intellect and impulse raged on. Luckily, Atlas had made his move. Wang Zheng, if you didn't die here, I'll call you father. Atlas walked onto the battlefield, but suddenly turned around, back facing Wang Zheng. That's the end for today. Before the main competition, if anyone wants to find Wang Zheng, you can go through me. The winds were shifting. He was not here to fight? Didn't Atlantis have a grudge with Wang Zheng? Would he not at least fight him? After a few disgraces, and now the matter of Princess Aina, what was he playing at? The first to stand with Wang Zheng was actually an Atlantean. Lear's mouth was wide open. This guy's mother must have bedded a dog, for his brain to be this rotten. When did Atlantis suddenly like to be needless interferers? Mars walked up. Me as well. I'm known to be brazen, but even I can't take this anymore. Aragorn, if you're still resentful about your junior, you can take it up with me. Aragorn looked at Mars mildly. Not too late when you're recovered. Having said thus, he left. Clearly, he was not intending to fight anymore. Basically, he felt that Wang Zheng could still drag someone into death with him, and there was no need for him to take the fall. Besides, there was no chance now. Zhengyang looked on at the guy his cousin was infatuated with. Suddenly, he began to understand. Perhaps what had attracted Xiaolu was precisely this. The more stubborn you were, the more trouble you attracted. And for someone as clever as Xiaolu, this was irresistible. Zhang Zun had rushed up as well, hurriedly stemming Wang Zheng's wounds. Damn, he was already so old, and it was not that he had never fought for his life before. But he had almost shed tears just now. He did not cede anybody respect, but this Wang Zheng, he would. Atlas and Mars did not interact, or speak. Slowly, the rest dispersed as well. With these two around, the rest did not stand a chance. And more importantly, there was no need. But now they were worried. If Wang Zheng lived till the main competition, what then? Ouyang family. The four girls were already flying in the air, their spirits completely reversed. Qian Shuidi caught Weiyan. My little princess, what did you mean just now? Could it be? Weiyan did not shirk this time. For some reason, after what they had just witnessed, she felt very free. At least, in front of her own clique, she did not want to hide it anymore. None of you are allowed to clamor for his attention. I'm the one who's in second place. Ayaya, big news. My dear princess, how many snacks will you need to cram into my unstoppable mouth? And me, can I be third? Weiyan's eyes were still wet, but she was genuinely happy for Wang Zheng. As long as he was safe, she would be happy. At the monitoring room, basically all the generals were present. They had not expected Island A to be that intense. The elimination rate was frightening, in addition to Wang Zheng's astonishing fighting power. The worst off was Leah Sphinx. They had stood a good chance, but now it ended prematurely. Not just that, a genius warrior like Chichen Nakai had the potential to be the best. He had died here, and in a way that could not be saved. The power of that attack had been ultimate and mind-blowing. The killing power was out of this world. I remember that he is from Earth. For some reason, this sentence touched their hearts. I feel like because of this, the qualifiers can be declared over. If it continues, it's basically a special forces showdown. They'll all be killing each other off. What does everybody think? Bolette again raised the suggestion. The solar system's two teams had already been eliminated, and the solar system did not even have a representative. Damn, how could such a person be an Earthling? He should be Manalasuo's. I agree, we don't even have 64 teams left. There were no objections. This qualifier had been quite harsh. Under majority consent, the minority opinion was also dismissed. The elimination rate was too high, and the remaining survival battle no longer held meaning. An announcement sounded simultaneously above both islands. After 1 hour, the qualifiers would end prematurely. Those on Island A were not surprised, given the state of things. If it continued, there would be no meaning. After all, physical technique was but one aspect. And the important thing was still mecha battles. Humans used their bodies to test themselves and break through, but not for actual battle. But Wang Zheng's finger had broken the sky, and it would not be forgotten for a while. But Island B was in disarray. What was happening? Why would it suddenly be stopped? Zhang Shan had crawled out after hearing the news. and looked up into the sky. It was finally over. Although he had no idea what the outcome would be, he trusted Wang Zheng. Wang Zheng must have done it. What was that? There was another bag on the floor. Opening it, there were actually 9 tags inside. Zhang Shan raised his head to the sky. Even a moron would understand that this was not luck. Food fell from the sky, but not tags. There was not even a corpse around him. Someone was helping him, or helping Saruman's snake, but who would it be? Illogical. Everyone was trying to kill them. Why would someone be helping them? Fatty had already left after hearing the announcement. It was over. By this result, Wang Zheng must have wrecked the place again. He knew Wang Zheng was very strong, but he did not think he was that strong. It was a little frightening. He hoped his boss was fine. But given how steady his boss was, he was probably unhurt. He had finished his mission as well. 9 tags must be enough to enter the main competition, and as for giving Zhang Shan half, his concealment technique was good bait, and Fatty was a guy who separated business and personal feelings. On Island A, the transport carriers had already been dispatched. A few needed emergency treatment, and Wang Zheng had already been bandaged up by Zhang Zun. Basic treatment, and the bleeding had stopped. Zhang Zun was clearly someone who had picked it up with experience. Thank you. Wang Zheng still had to address Atlas and Mars. Atlas smiled slightly. No need. We're not sure of what's between you and Her Highness Aina, but we will decline. Mars was slightly taken aback. Strange. Why did the Atlanteans seem so familiar with Wang Zheng? And he had used we, which meant it was more than him. Wang Zheng, what else did you have prepared? This was what Mars really wanted to ask. Wang Zheng started, then grimaced. He wanted to shrug, but discovered he could not move his shoulders. I was just acting. If anyone else came, I would be a goner. I would have brought them with me though. Wang Zheng spoke the truth, and Mars understood. He was Mars, and Wang Zheng did not want to deceive him. Wang Zheng indeed had a final move. If anybody had acted, it would have been the last straw. He would have called Bonehead, and made a deal for the skeleton mech, and slaughter everyone. Of course, he would immediately be caught and dissected for research after that, but that was a matter for the future. Given Wang Zheng's current condition, what he said were still big words, but all 3 present believed him, because this was Wang Zheng. One by one, the transport carriers, shining search beams, appeared on the 2 islands. At the same time, the sky gradually lightened. This was one of the most savage qualifiers in the history of SIG, and also the one with the greatest losses. This was definitely a heavy blow to Lea Sphinx Federation. Of course, this battle had made someone's career. Perhaps the outside world would never know, but within the elite fighters of the military schools in this generation, they would forever avoid a nightmare called Wang Zheng. Of course, SIG was just beginning. The show was over, and the monitoring room had cleared out as well. Bolette had not left. He asked the technicians to replay the battle. Among the generals, many had already turned political, but Bolette was different. He was still fascinated by the ability and details of battle. Bolette had watched the battles more than 10 times. From the instant that Chichin Nakai had taken the field, the pace that he thought he controlled had all been encompassed into Wang Zheng's plan. Chichin Nakai was worried about Wang Zheng's death counter, and had therefore been extra careful. And Wang Zheng had endured those 2 hits to rest his opponent's mind. Only, when Chichin Nakai had unleashed his own finisher, that was the time when he was most vulnerable, and Wang Zheng had taken the chance. If he had failed, he would have died. Whether an individual fight or a battle, one's understanding of the situation and one's enemy's state of mind were the keys to victory. Chichin Nakai had held all the advantages, but he had underestimated Wang Zheng's determination. They were both Earth-rank pros, and Chichin Nakai had been careful, but this caution had instead become fatal. When he attacked, his doubts had risen, and therefore chosen what seemed like the safest course to him. But in truth, that had dug his own grave, which was precisely what Wang Zheng had been aiming for, or even better than Wang Zheng could have hoped for. The power of Wang Zheng's blow aside, even in terms of psychological pressure, he had completely dominated Chichin Nakai. Chichin Nakai's greatest mistake was that, as a warrior, there was no safest route in battle. The pursuit of a fail-safe, sure win way was doomed to failure. Basically, Bolet's judgment and Wang Zheng's thinking were aligned. Wang Zheng's atomic break was clearly not complete yet. Although it had terrifying power, it could be avoided. Especially for an opponent like Chichen Nakai. Clearly, Chichen Nakai had overthought the issue. He still had to think of his own future after Wang Zheng's demise, and had tried to avoid injury. Those were the consequences of overthinking. It was not to say that Chichen Nakai's thinking was faulty. It had been the most important factor in his success. Only, after meeting Wang Zheng, he had been seen through, and used against him. Bolet pondered and recorded. This was an exception. Although it was not too widely seen, it would be a good question for the special forces. As for that golden finger, the screen was also too blurry. This spoke of a strength class that surpassed the normal physical world. This kid was full of surprises. Student Wang Zheng was clearly in the heavily wounded category. After being seen to, he was sent to the hospital promptly. The transport carrier had already carried out basic treatment to ensure that he could continue with the main competition. The second lieutenant who was seeing to Wang Zheng was extremely pretty, but her expression was serious. Who was this guy? Before an hour had even passed, 6 generals from different countries had asked about his condition. What had he done? Although the type of battle was unknown, the injuries were serious, especially to the right hand. It looked like a train had ran over it. Within Wang Zheng's body, the primordial regression technique was cycling, but it could not pass through the wounded areas. The atomic break had a feedback which was still difficult to endure for him. His body was not strong enough. If the primordial regression technique entered the 3rd level, he might be able to hold on. If it were not for the 5 elements in balance, that blow to Chichen Nakai would have exploded his own shoulder before he even released it. Power was double-edged, but Wang Zheng was still in a good mood. At least he had managed to use it, and he had foiled Kashawan's plans. Now he just needed to recover as quickly as possible. The problem remained. If Kashawan pressured for the main competition to begin earlier, then, given normal procedures, there was about a month left to the main competition. Given Aslan's medical technology, Wang Zheng's injuries could heal, with just a slight handicap to his energy. And this was no problem to him. But if the qualifiers had been truncated, then would this cause the main competition to be pushed forward? Wang Zheng suddenly realized that there were more problems, but he could do nothing about it. Who knew if that old hag Kashawan would play dirty or not? Don't think foolish thoughts. You're gravely injured, and should rest calmly. Don't think about Sig, the pretty girl said exasperatedly after looking at the brainwave scans. Wang Zheng nodded and smiled. This was all he could do. The rest would be up to fate. No, he believed that Aina would not dance according to Kashawan's tune. The rest was up to her.